Welcome to the Commander's Journey, a journey for new Commander players ready to uncover their hidden magic potential.
Welcome back. I'm Joel.
And I'm Alex.
And here we are today, another deck tech. And this time, I made the deck.
I'm about to say, this time Joel hit the ground running. He has taken advantage of Anowon. And actually, since I brought him up, let me just read Anowon. Anowon, the Ruined Thief. 2 blue and a black for legendary creature, Vampire Rogue. Other rogues you control get +1/+1. Whenever one or more rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. It's a 2/4. Anowon recently came out as some of the commander decks alongside Zendikar Rising. Oh, boys, are they possible? And Joel has quite an interesting take on it with the Rogue Tribal.
Yeah, I almost wanted to name it another Anowon deck. There's so many Anowon decks out there. Obviously, because, I mean, the price point that Wizards put this at, like $20, plus the fact that it played really well out of the box. You got all that value, was great. And I got this, and I got the other one for my kid, and we just started playing. I was like, I have to upgrade this deck. It's too much fun, in my opinion. And plus, I didn't have any tribal decks, so it's kind of why I wanted to do it.
I'm about to say, too, you can really see Wizards starting to figure out how a commander deck needs to play, right, to function. And we're really starting to see it this year of them consistently making good, well-made commander decks. I think we really started seeing it last year, but this year especially, they're hitting, bullseye after bullseye after bullseye, I want to say, with these commanders.
For sure.
So, Joel, normally we start with our game plan since you made the deck. Tell me, Joel, what is the game plan for the deck?
So we're playing a bunch of rogues. So it's Rogue Tribal. I think I got 25 or so rogues in here. So there's a lot of unblockable creatures or rogues that are flying in over. And a lot of them, because of Anowon's ability, you want to mill your opponent. So they'll add to the mill. They'll add extra mill. Plus, if Anowon's out, now you're getting them to mill cards. If they mill creatures, you're getting that card draw, which is really awesome. So because you're doing that and you're filling up people's graveyards, you're also there's also a lot of cards here that just steal things out of their graveyards so that you can use it. So really, the game plan is to get a lot of damage in, mill people, and steal their stuff and really outvalue them till you win. It kind of, to me, it feels like a quicker strategy. You want to get ahead of them and steal something big and nasty, use it against them, the thing they were trying to use against you, and or just get in there for a bunch of damage and push them back a little bit.
So, Joel, speaking of that, what is the best synergistic game plan cards for the deck?
Well, first we definitely have to mention Xerath, San the Trickster.
Yes, so Xerath San, the Trickster, is 3 blue and a black for a legendary creature. Merfolk Rogue has flash, 2 blue and a black. Return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand. Put Xerath San the Trickster from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Whenever Xerath San deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a 4/4, and boy, could I not say his name. I almost messed on it more than once, too. I really fought it.
He's got a fun name, but...
say it 3 times fast, Joel.
I'm just going to call him Xerath. Xerath, this card is perfect, super synergistic. It came out in Zendikar Rising. It was not part of the deck, but this came out in the main set. Perfect for this deck. What's great about this is you have unblockable creatures already, so you're going to be able to use his ability. So what you want to do is maybe you swing in with a little 1/1 or 2/1 or 1/2 rogue, and then it's unblockable. They're not going to block it. They can't block it. You use the ability to pay 2 a blue and a black, and then just do kind of a little ninjutsu type thing where you pop that thing back into your hand, put Xerath in place, and you'd steal something out of the graveyard. The great thing is this deck is putting things in their graveyard that you want to steal. So you're getting 4 damage in, and you're taking one of their things. It's just a really awesome way to push yourself just ahead a little bit.
I like, too, that goes straight onto the battlefield. Talk about value. If you 5 mana, get a swing in, deal 4 damage, and then sometimes steal like an 8/8 or something, just
Exactly.
snowball harder.
And the fact that it hits the battlefield makes it very, very strong.
So the next card we have here is Soaring Thought Thief. For blue and a black, it's a creature human rogue. It has flash, it has flying, and as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. Whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. It's a 1/3.
So this card is just, I found, because I built myself a historic rogue deck on MTG Arena. I didn't tell you before this. And this card in that deck, and also in my commander deck, the times I've been able to goldfish or play some tests, this card just keeps things moving forward if you get it out, right? It does kind of a little bit of everything. It mills everybody, keeps putting things in their graveyard, and it pushes it so that once people have 8 or more things, you're now getting that anthem effect on all your other rogues. So I just found it a very key card. It just really works really well. And it's for 2 mana, get it out quick, start using it, start milling people right away.
Another card we have here, Call to the Kindred, 3 and a blue for an enchantment aura. It says enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top 5 cards of your library. If you do, you may put a creature card that shares a creature type with enchanted creature from among them onto the battlefield. Then you put the rest of those cards on the bottom of your library in any order. I remember this card. I rather like it.
Yeah, this card is great in really any tribal deck because you're running in this deck so many rogues. You basically just put this aura on one of your rogues, and every time before you even start your turn, you're getting that advantage. You're just looking at the top 5. You're almost always going to find a rogue. And sometimes you won't, but most of the time you will, and that card just goes right on the battlefield. So much you don't have to pay for it, right? So for 4 mana to have an aura that sticks around and does this 1, 2, or 3 times, it's just super, super valuable in a deck like this. And again, the quicker you get these rogues out, where you can start doing damage and milling, that's when you start. The person that you're playing against starts to feel that pressure. And Call to the Kindred, I think, is just great. It's a great way to cheat out creatures in this deck.
So next we will move on to our synergistic ramp. You got a fun one here. Frog Tosser Banneret, 1 and a black for a creature goblin rogue. It has haste. Goblin spells and rogue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. It's a 1/1.
Yeah, and this came with the deck. Just you can't take this out. It's just too good, right? I mean, it's just making all your rogues that much cheaper. And it's a rogue itself with haste, so you can get it out early, get some hits in, and then just keep it around so you can make everything cheaper. Great way to ramp, especially in blue and black where you're not going to have a ton of ways to ramp very well.
Out of curiosity, Joel, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you actually have any other goblins in the deck? You definitely don't need it. The rogue build is good enough, but I'm just curious.
No, I don't think I have any other goblins in this deck.
Oh, no, you have a Stink Drinker.
Do I have a stink what?
Stink Drinker. It's not a card we were planning talking about, but I found a goblin. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I didn't mean to throw us on
that's
a tangent.
Also that you're right. That's in the set. Let's read a Stink Drinker Bandit. It's 3 and a black for a creature goblin rogue with prowl 1 black. Whenever a rogue you control attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +2/+1 until end of turn. And it's a 2/1. Yeah, that's a. I do have another, but it's also a rogue. It's a goblin rogue.
Oh, exactly. But if you have that synergy there, I was curious. I'm sorry. As I was looking at the card, I'm like, I wonder if you have any goblins in here too. Really get double duty.
Well, I didn't purpose to.
Oh, but, it worked out. It worked out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take us so off course. I guess we could move on to Sword of the Animist. 2 generic mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. It's equipped 2.
Yeah, and this is if you're not running green in a deck, you almost always want to have a Sword of the Animist out, right? In a creature deck. So, but especially this one because you're always attacking. You're almost always attacking. So if you can get this out early, get it onto your rogues. They're unblockable as well, so this thing's going to stick around. You'll equip it once and hopefully not have to keep equipping it to things, but you're just going to get that land that you need in Dimir colors. So Sword of the Animist, definitely a great card.
Yeah, definitely a favorite of mine too. I really like that include.
And I also do have a lot of, I'd also say a lot of the 2 CMC rocks, mana rocks in here, the signets, a bunch of the other ones. I think once you get to the 3 or 4 CMC ramp cards, it slows this deck down quite a bit. So I'd try and stick with, a lot of the quicker ramp if you can in this deck for sure.
Makes total sense. We'll move on to the best synergistic card draw. And we have Heirloom Blade. It's 3 generic mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. Whenever equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. Put that card into your hand, the rest in your bottom of your library in any random order. Equip for 1.
This card is just great because equipment in this deck is really good. I don't have a ton of equipment, but I do have pretty good equipment in here. You're going to put it on your rogue. You're going to swing in. You're getting that extra power, but inevitably, sometimes your creature gets removed or you're going to get blocked and you don't care because, when you die with this thing attached to it, you're going to go get another rogue, and then put that in your hand. It's not as good as Call of the Kindred where you can just stick it on the battlefield, but still you're getting some value out of it. And for equip 1, that's not bad because then something else you have out, you're equipping something for 1 and it's getting +3/+1. So the Heirloom Blade is definitely a good card for this deck.
Next, we have a Reconnaissance Mission. 2 blue and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card that has cycling for 2.
Yeah, so there's a few cards in here that, give you more card draw whenever you do damage or whenever you fight. And I think that's really key because that keeps the game plan moving forward, right? So you're wanting to mill people, they're going to mill a creature, you're going to get a card. You're going to do this, you're going to get a card. You're going to attack, you're going to do damage, you're going to get a card. So you just keep filling your hand. That's going to help you more quickly get to the cards you want and keep your game plan moving forward. So Reconnaissance Mission, Biden and Thassa, there's a few other cards in here that just kind of do that. So whenever you're doing damage, you're getting card draw, and you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Even if it's little damage, it's that extra value that Reconnaissance Mission is doing.
Awesome. And then we also have Distant Melody. It's 3 and a blue for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Draw a card for each permanent type you control of that type.
This card is great in this deck. Very often, I think you're going to have at least 2 to 4 of your rogues out. That's really what this deck wants to keep doing, right? And if you can have 2 to 4, you have 3 or 4 rogues out, and you cast Distant Melody for 3 and a blue. You're drawing 3 or 4 cards at the cost of 3 and a blue. And then potentially, if you've made a bunch of tokens, you could be drawing a ton of cards off Distant Melody. It has that upside, right? The worst, you don't have any rogues out and the card's dead in your hand. But in a deck like this where you have a lot of rogues, you're going to have some cards out, and it's just really synergistic. So if you can keep your rogues out, keep your commander out, you can get a lot of card draw off this for sure.
I think this looks pretty even at 2 rogues in play, and then starts really getting value at 3 or 4 and up from there. So I think as long as you have 2, I think it's worth casting it.
For sure. Yeah, and the upside is also really great, right? Because Una or these other cards make a bunch of tokens. So if you happen to have a bunch of fairy rogues out and you can cast this, you can really have a big play as well.
Well, this will get scary really fast with those fairy rogues. On to Teferi's Ageless Insight, 2 blue and a blue for a legendary enchantment. If you would draw a card except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead.
I did. This is from the new core set, right? M21, and I didn't get a lot. I think I only ended up getting 1 in my box, but just today when I went to go grab one of these at the store, I ended up buying 4 or 5 of them because
I think that's a great call.
This card is really good, and it's going to be really good in a lot of decks. It really works well in this. Of course, it works super well in wheel decks if you're wheeling a lot. It's incredible in those decks. But in a deck like this, a lot of times exactly what you're doing is getting that second card draw, right? You're going to draw a card for turn, but then you're going to swing in with the rogue. You're hopefully going to mill a creature, get that second card. Guess what? Teferi gives you another card. do that again. The fairy gives you another card. If you draw a card except the first one you draw, well, guess what? Maybe you hit, and you're drawing 2 or 3 extra cards. Now you're drawing 4 or 6 extra cards. So I think Teferi's Ageless Insight is definitely got a lot of value. And I just think it's going to keep creeping up in value as far as what it will do for your decks moving forward.
I just love it too, Joel. While Joel's talking about the card that we're currently on, I'm often looking ahead just to see what the next card is that we're going to talk about. And I was looking at Teferi's Ageless Insight, and I was saying, well, what can I add on to Joel doing? And you said exactly what I was going to say. Oh, this is going to see some play in our format for the foreseeable future. I love it, Joel. I love it. It's fantastic. Same page to a T. And next, we're going to move on to our single target removal, our synergistic single target removal, and I love this pick here. It's flavorful. It's a very inexpensive card, but oh boy, does it get fantastic in your deck. And that card is Drown in the Lock. Blue and a black for an instant. You choose one. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard.
So this card is it's almost like it was built for the deck, even though this came out in what, Throne of Eldraine?
Yeah.
This card. But it's so synergistic because it's either a counter spell or a removal spell for 2 mana at instant speed. The only thing that it really requires of you is for there to be cards in your opponent's graveyard, right? So that's exactly what you're doing with this deck. Rogues you're just filling people's cards up with graveyards. Sorry, you're filling people's graveyards up with cards. So you're turning Drown on the Lock on a lot quicker than you do in a lot of other decks, right? Dimir always wants to play with graveyards, but like you're really just turning it on quickly. And to have access to a really awesome card like this that's so flexible, where it can counter something like a big sorcery or instant spell that's going to come out and do damage, and or it has to destroy that one really big beast out for 2 mana. Super valuable and super on point with this deck.
So fantastic. Next, we move on to our synergistic board wipes. We have Kindred Dominance, 5 black and a black for a sorcery. Choose a creature type, destroy creatures that aren't of the chosen type.
Yep, and obviously, right, you want to choose rogues in this, right? Not goblins. You only got 2 goblins. You want to choose rogues. You choose rogues, and then it's a one-sided board wipe. I mean, it's really synergistic. I think anything that has that is a tribal deck that has black in it, you're going to use Kindred Dominance just because you can save all your tribe while you just destroy everybody else's board of their creatures. So Kindred Dominance. I think you run this in your Varina list, right?
I have it in my Varina list, and they need to reprint this cycle too. The whole Kindred cycle is fantastic. Any tribal deck really wants to get a lot of these cards, and boy, they need to reprint it. I don't see a way around it.
Yeah, and it's fun when you can play this such synergistic way. I mean, as you can tell, the way Alex and I format our deck techs, we like to break everything down into synergies because that's how we have a lot of fun playing Commander, right? You could be a combo-y player, you can do the long drawn out big creatures, do whatever you want to do, but if everything in your deck is really synergistic and just works together, it's just a lot of fun. And being able in tribal especially to do that is awesome. So yeah, the Kindred, these Kindred cards, man, they should put more of them in. Maybe they will. We got a bunch more sets coming out this next year.
I was going to say Commander Legends, see if we get the Kindred cycle back at Knock Knock, who knows? We'll see.
We're only on day 2 of spoilers, so
yeah.
To let you know when we're recording. Day 2 of spoilers.
Oh, there you go. I was going to say one last thing too. What Joel said too, we do really synergistic things, that's what we talk about with our deck tech. And the main reason why I think it lands us, I know I enjoy, and I'm sure you do too, Joel, when you play cards that no one else plays, they're only good in your deck. And in your deck, they're often amazingly good, such as Drown the Lock in this deck. Or, Frog Toss or Bannerek or Xerath Sand, right? Like there's all these cards that really go well with it. and you don't see them in other decks because they're too specific. But in the specific deck that we're playing, all of a sudden they're like fire, and then they go both under the radar and underappreciated, and it makes for some fun gameplay, I'll say.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I like that part of it too. And the other thing I like about it, when things are very synergistic, you never feel like, even if you got cards, you don't have to have all these awesome high CMC cards that are playing great, huge spells, right? You can have a bunch of regular cards, but they all work together so well that each turn you feel like you're doing something really cool and moving you. You know what I mean? It feels more fun to me because it's like, oh, I'm doing this. I got another, especially with this. This is my first tribal deck, so it's even more synergistic.
Yes.
But it's like, it's fun. Let's just leave it at that.
It's a good time.
Synergy is fun.
So next, we'll move on to our synergistic recursion and protection, and this one's also a favorite. Whisper Silk Cloak, 3 generic for artifact equipment. Equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud. It has Equip 2.
So this is perfect for the deck. Put it on your commander. Put it on your best creature out there. It can't be blocked, and it has Shroud. Especially on your commander, this is great because you're getting that mill, you're getting that card draw. People can't target it. But just know if you put this on, you can't put Call to the Kindred on the Whisper Silk.
Or
Cloak
any other artifacts either, or equipments either. Do the other equipments first, and then Whisper Silk Cloak.
There you go. In whatever order you can. But you have so many rogues that you're utilizing, right? This might not always end up on your commander. It might end up on another more powerful rogue you have out at the time. But to be able to give something unblockable and to protect it from single target removal is really awesome.
It's fantastic. Just as you said, too, the Call the Kindred combo. Get Call the Kindred on it first and throw Whisper Silk Cloak. All of a sudden it's protected. You're getting so much value off it. And on top of it, it can't be blocked. You're really getting that value engine to go in there.
Oh, yeah. Let's see if we can make that work one of these days.
It's going to happen in your deck. I think it's going to happen more than once, too, Joel. I first see it. Next thing we got is Lightninggreaves, 2 generic artifact equipment. It says equipped creature has haste and shroud. It has equip for 0.
So this is a classic, right? Lightninggreaves. There's the other one, Swiftfoot. We didn't put Swiftfoot boots in here, but Lightninggreaves is great. You get haste, you get shroud. You can swing in right that turn, and you're protecting yourself from just being removed like that. So again, it's really good for what this deck wants to do.
Here's another cool one: Call of the Death Dweller, 2 generic mana and a black mana for a sorcery. Return up to 2 target creature cards with total converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a Death Catch counter on either one of them, and then put a Menace counter on either one of them.
Yeah, this card is just... This is a newer card. This card just came out. What was it, in Ikoria?
Yeah.
It's just... It works so perfectly with this. This is one of the few recursion. There are a lot of cards in here just taking things out of other people's graveyards. But there's a time or two you're going to need something back that you were just utilizing, right? That's really good. This gets you it back, but it also puts a Death Touch counter on it. And a Menace counter, so it makes it even more, unlikely that it could be blocked again, right? It just makes it more, it just makes it better. And in being rogues, there's a lot of cards in here that cost 3 or less as far as mana cost go. So I think it's a really good card in this deck. It's not a card that's utilized a lot, I see, but I think it works really well with these rogues.
It's fantastic. So next we're going to move on to some alt-win cons, and you got 2 heavy hitters here, the Primordials in your colors, Subculture Primordial and Deluvian Primordial. And I guess I'll start with Subcultural Primordial. It's 5 black and a black for a creature avatar. It has Intimidate. And then it says when a Subcultural Primordial enters the battlefield for each opponent, you may put up to 1 target card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a 5/4. And Deluvian Primordial is 5 blue and a blue for a creature avatar with flying. When Deluvian Primordial enters the battlefield for each opponent, you may cast up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If a card cast this way will be put into a graveyard this turn, exile instead. It's a 5/5.
Yeah, so these Primordials are just alternate ways to really get a win or just really jump super far ahead I kind of added them because I had Diluvian Primordial in one of my binders, and I'm like, where can I use it? And then I realized that this deck came with Sepulchral Primordial. I'm like, hey, if I put both these in here, I'm jamming things into people's graveyards. They're synergistic in that regard, right? They're not rogues, but you're taking things out of their graveyards, and you're just using it against them. And it's really nasty and really powerful. So I think, especially if it's further along in the game, and maybe you've not been able to get all your things online, right? You've not been able to really set up your rogues and do your whole mill strategy. Kind of having a hard time that game. If you get a Primordial in your hand, now you can really just use this to really jump ahead, either catch back up or really just, especially Diluvian Primordial. People have powerful instants and sorceries in their graveyard typically, and to be able to use one from each in a game of Commander, that's like using 3. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Pretty nasty.
Looks scary to me. Not looking forward to that, Joel. Another.
Hey now,
no, you're right. It's I'm not looking forward to it.
Now you know how I feel when I play against your Verena deck.
Exactly right, and I'm familiar with the how powerful most of the Primordials are. And oh boy, when I see it, I'm like, oh hey Joel, I'm countering that. I'm going to deal with that this game. Not if I can avoid it. Next, we have Notorious Throng, 3 and a blue for a tribal sorcery rogue. Has Prowl for 5 and a blue. And it says, create X/1/1 black fairy rogue creature tokens with flying, where X is the damage dealt to your opponent this turn. If this spell's Prowl cost was paid, take an extra turn after this one.
Yeah, so Notorious Throng, it can just be 3 and a blue and make a bunch of fairy rogue creatures, right? Depending on how much you hit them for. But you pay that prowl cost, which is an extra 5 and a blue, or it's just 5 and a blue, right?
With the extra prowl cost.
Yeah, it's extra.
Yes. Basically, you can cast it for the prowl cost instead, as long as you dealt combat damage with a rogue.
Yeah, so if you get that in, which you want to do in this deck, anyway. Now it's only 6, right? And you're not just creating the fairies, but you're also and getting that damage in. You're taking an extra turn. So that's kind of how the alt win kind of comes in. If you have all these extra fairies, now you can utilize them to swing in, and or if you have something else out, right? It's kind of like your Way of Haste. Plus, you're untapping, and maybe you have something else big. Maybe you have a Primordial. Also,
that'd be scary. Holy cow!
But Notorious Throng came with the deck. It's a great card, and we kind of put in the alt win con selection because it really can. If you take an extra turn and you're set up the right way, it can really get you ahead enough to win the game, either then or at least put you ahead so that in the next few turns you're winning.
Last card we have here is Sir Conrad the Grim. 3 black and a black for legendary creature Human Knight. Whenever another creature dies or creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent, and also for 1 in a black, each player mills a card. It's a 5/4.
So I left Sir Conrad in this deck. It came with it. It's the one aristocrat card I left in here. They also had Zulaport Cutthroat in here because he's a rogue. I took that out because I wanted more rogues to come in and do damage. Zulaport's good. Cards die, you do 1 damage. Sir Conrad, so much better because you're milling so many cards, right? This deck is just throwing things away. And every time you're throwing things away, and this deck's stealing things, and then every time you're taking things out of graveyards, Sir Conrad is just pinging everybody. And plus you can mill if you need to. Say you don't quite have the 8 cards that Soaring Thought Thief needs. You need to just mill 1 more card to give all your rogues +1/+0 because of Soaring Thought Thief. You can do that with Sir Conrad. Anyway, this card is it works synergistically so well with the whole mill effect. Had to keep Sir Conrad there. And this will win you the game when you're not thinking about it because it'll just slowly tick everybody down. And you're hitting them with rogues, you're ticking them down. And Sir Conrad could definitely be an alternate win con.
Definitely could steal a win, and just want to make sure all our newer players are a little familiar with the wording of it. Specifically, if Joel's stealing things from other people's graveyards, you do not get the damage trigger. But if he steals something from his own graveyard, if you bring something back into play, he does get the trigger. Everywhere else, it doesn't matter as long as something's going to the graveyard. So Conrad will ping it, but if something is coming out of the graveyard, it's only your graveyard that matters.
Yeah, because you're right. The way it's worded says, or a creature card leaves your graveyard.
Yeah.
But good. That's good. You clarified that. But yeah, even still, putting things in other people's graveyards, it's getting that ping effect.
Still fantastic. Still absolutely fantastic. So weaknesses. We like talking about weaknesses when we are deck building in our podcast here. And what are the weaknesses for this deck, Joel?
So I would say one of the weaknesses you and I kind of talked about before. You really want to set up your rogues and get them out there and start doing this kind of this thing where you're hitting them, you're milling them, you're getting card draw. It's kind of a little bit of a machine. So if people are really casting board wipes and just clearing your board of rogues and you're having to rebuild all the time, and or because in the ramp package you're relying heavily on artifacts rather than land ramp because you're in blue and black, if people like wipe out all your artifacts, those kind of board wipes can really set you back. So it is kind of weak against that. There you have a few. I think I have 2 or 3 counter spells in this deck, so you can kind of protect yourself a little. But I think it's weak to board wipes for sure, because then you just kind of got to start over in a way. Another weakness it can have is against big creature decks. Now, of course, you have like unblockable, right? So you can get in and squeeze in little hits here and there. But if somebody's got a big creature deck, like a Godzilla deck or something, they're just smashing into you. You got to make that decision. Do I just want to use these guys as chump blockers because I'm just getting hit so many times? And again, it's kind of taken away from what you really want to do. You do have some decent removal in here to start removing their stuff, and a few board wipes that'll help in big creature decks. But I think it could be a little bit weak to certain big creature decks.
Yeah, it definitely looks like you're relying on stealing those big creatures back to your side after you get a few swings in, and you just have to survive long enough that doesn't totally mess you up in that big creature matchup. You're definitely playing a different game than you want to be doing in that versus match.
Yeah, and I did that with my historic robes. I have Xerath in there, and I was able to steal somebody's huge dinosaur and put it on my side because he's just throwing dinosaurs at me all day, and that got me the win actually. So yeah, there is that advantage. So it's probably weaker to board wipes, but big creature decks can really have its way with them. Like your Xerath deck would probably have its way unless I was able to kind of keep them under check, keep them in check.
Definitely, you'd have to get quite a good series of cards to counteract just what the deck wants to do.
Exactly.
And the last section we have is our easy upgrades, Joel. What's some easy upgrades for the deck?
Well, for sure, it's always lands and ramp. We don't put the most expensive lands or ramp in here. Like, we don't have mana crypts. We don't have the moxes and all that. And we don't have the fetch lands and that type of stuff. So if you have that in your binders somewhere, or you have the extra cash somewhere, go ahead and put that in. That's always an easy upgrade. That's almost a no-brainer. But there's another really good card here. Want to go ahead and read that one for us? This would be
So it's Patriarch's Bidding. Patriarch's Bidding is 3 black and a black for a sorcery. Each player chooses a creature type. Each player returns all creature cards of a type chosen this way from his or her graveyard to play.
So I think this is a really cool upgrade. Definitely easy upgrade in a deck that runs a ton of one type of creature. So especially with this, a ton of rogues. I guess this wouldn't be good against your vampire deck, or I mean not your vampire, your zombie deck.
I don't have a vampire deck.
Do you?
I don't. I don't have a vampire.
But anyway, it's not going to be good against other tribal decks. So I guess if you're in your meta, if a lot of people in your play group play a lot of tribal, this wouldn't be a great upgrade. But if they don't, like in ours, there's a few tribes, but not a lot. This is great because you're going to get a ton of stuff back, and everybody else might get like 1 or 2 things back. Typically. So I think it's an easy upgrade and it's a good card.
Makes sense. Another one is a classic Bitter Blossom. For 1 black, it's a tribal enchantment fairy. At the beginning of your upgrade, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 Black Fairy Rogue creature token with flying.
Yeah, easy upgrade. It's a pricey cards, 30, $40, whatever it is. So if you have one, put it in for sure. I mean, you're making a bunch of rogues that are flying. You're going to get a ton of that extra, and you're just getting them every turn. So super great card for this deck.
And we got Sword of Feast and Famine, 3 generic artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from black and from green. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. You may tap all lands you control for equip for 2.
So this card's great. It's obviously one of the swords. It's powerful. It's expensive again, as far as monetary value. But you get this on, it's gonna help you get a little bit of protection, right? So you can swing into people that are playing black and green. A lot of people are playing green, and you get it. The most powerful part about this is you get to untap all your lands, and that's really good in this deck. So this is a very easy upgrade. If you have Sword of Feast and Famine, it goes great in so many decks, but it really would help this deck to get that untapping your lands and be able to use. You can play all your rogues, untap your lands. Now you can use your counter spells or your other things you want to use during other people's turns too.
Well, there you go. And then our last easy upgrade, if you happen to have it, is Fierce Guardianship for 2 and a blue instant. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell.
Yeah, this is perfect. Super powerful, super expensive. Again, this came in one of the latest commander decks. What was that? Timeless Wisdom.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, it was
the Gavi deck.
The Jeskai colored deck. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is great because it's basically a free counter target non-creature spell. So you just slip this in place to one of the other. It's better than the other counter spell that's in this deck. Let's just say that, and you stick it right in there, and there you go. But again, it's pricey, so it's an upgrade if you have the cash or if you have one on hand. Pop it in.
Well, there you go, Joel. That's your Anowon deck. Pretty exciting.
It's a lot of fun. I'd say if you haven't, like me, played a tribal deck, try this one out, or go look at Alex's Verena deck. That's a zombie deck, but try tribal for sure. I would say definitely if you haven't tried tribal, try tribal.
Tribal's one of those ones that it's weird. You can see how they really, Wizards of the Coast put a lot of effort in how they design certain tribes. So certain tribes will want to do certain things, and even if they're unintended, you find a lot of them want to do the same. Like rogues, like swinging in or being unblockable. Right? There's just a general theme around rogues throughout all of Magic's history. Same thing with a lot of other ones. So it's kind of cool when you get to do tribal that you get to often see some, the history of Magic, see some unintended synergies that really feel fantastic to play.
Yeah, and if you are if you're paying attention to the spoilers, this is only day 2 again. There's a lot of golems coming out. I'm wondering if there's going to be a golem tribal thing going on here.
That would be interesting. I wouldn't put my money there, but oh boy, it's going to be. I'd actually be pleasantly surprised if I'm wrong. I'll tell you that.
I'd just be interesting, but
cool.
See when you play tribal, the more and more you start thinking in that direction. So I definitely encourage it. But this is fun if you like fast decks, and you like that. It could be a little. It's one of those decks there's not a ton of cards here that are like super feel bad cards in here. I think you could put a lot of feel bad type cards in here, but that just a little bit of. I'm going to mill a few cards from you, mill a few cards from you. I'm going to take this. I'm going to draw cards. That whole idea, if you can get your game plan going, it's really frustrating to the rest of the play group looking at you because they're just like, oh, you're just hitting me with a bunch of 2-1s and 3-1s and 4-2s. You're like, and it just starts to become, one of those really fun decks. If you can get your stuff online, you're doing everything you want to do. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I always like stealing other people's things, in games. That is not in real life. But, so if you like rogues and you like stealing people's stuff, and these colors, I love black and blue. I always love black. I've started to fall in love with blue. But if you remember, Alex, when I first started playing Magic, I was telling you I'm not so sure about blue. Remember that?
I knew you'd be a convert in time. It just would take a little bit. I foresaw it. I think every Magic player generally goes to that same arc. So you'll see the next person come along with it, Joel. I'm telling you now. But anyways, that is our Rogue Tribal deck for Anowon, the Ruin Thief. For those of you who appreciate, like this, or maybe interested in purchasing the deck, or just want to leave us something cool about the deck or something you really liked, please leave a comment if you would, subscribe if you aren't, and let us know how you feel about it, and any other interesting cards that maybe we missed. And same thing, if you're going to purchase any of the cards, please use our affiliate link with TCG Player. We are a small channel, and anything, even the smallest little bit, helps us out. If you're going to buy any of the cards or any extra cards from the new Commander Legends we talked about a couple times, please use it. We really, really appreciate it.
We really do, and we appreciate the subscriptions, the thumbs up, the comments, just talking to us about what you liked, what you don't like, any ideas, any suggestions. It's a lot of fun for us. We love Magic, and we love talking about these decks and cards, especially for newer players like myself. So that's why we started doing this channel in the first place. So thank you for listening, and until next time.
See ya.